Okay, so I'm hoping that we're going live now. I was going to get started and then give you all a heads up for those of you who haven't been with us on the first two nights, in case you just joined for this first night. This is our Senior Dog Care Summit 2.0, and we're having some problems with the StreamYard keeping the continuity of the delivery of the service. I'm now in my third different location and setup. So we've pretty well ruled out that it's not my problem, but it does become a problem when I'm jabbering along answering one of your questions, and all of a sudden, you get that terrible looking expression of somebody caught in motion that has now been stopped. So if it does happen, I will go out, just, like stay right there. I'll back out and come back in. It only takes like a few seconds and then pick up where I left off. So that's what we're running into, but it's working out okay. So thank you all for being here. I hope you enjoyed day 3. It was our hands-on help and doing exercises, and we had some great presenters, and it was fun for me doing those with them. So hopefully you're getting some good ideas and things that you can use on your seniors and your geriatrics out there. Those pooches that need a little bit of extra boost, and some good ideas and things. I also want to thank our sponsors. So the Vision Light, low level light therapy. We really appreciate them and their support. And also Chi Dog. I promote low level light therapy and Chi Dog. Both of these concepts are wonderful, and I've used them all in my practice and promote them to my clients. So it may be options that'll work for you in some of the situations that you're dealing with. All righty, so we can go ahead and jump on into it and get some questions going. Patty says my dog has IVDD, where her legs collapse, and she could be paralyzed. Is it safe to use massage and the kinesio tape on her? Yes, both of those are good. The one thing you want to just be cautious of is that you're not putting a lot of pressure in the area along the spinal column. Like, don't push hard on the vertebra. You can do a lot of massage it to different degrees. So things that are range of motion is good. That's not going to bring muscle tone back. That's just about keeping the joints circulating. I actually have an exercise video DVD. It's now on a flash drive that you can purchase, and it walks through all the different exercises to use for those ones that are paretic or have paralysis. I've done, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dogs through my rehab time in practice, and using the alpha stem microcurrent therapy through the back and through the legs gets that current going. You want to do things that's going to help boost the ATP. The laser will do that too, and that'll help to get that energy cycle going, also supporting their systems just from a circulatory way. So that's where the massage comes in, and definitely the kinesio taping would be really, really good. And there were some examples of how to use that to help get those toes to stop doing the curling and the dragging. So all of that would be beneficial for sure. Alrighty. All right, Lindsay says that her dog Morgan has chronic kidney disease. Okay. Tips to support her kidney function and keep her condition stable. Well, so a lot of what we look at in kidney function, you can certainly use herbs. So dandelion leaves are good for kidney support. I like to make sure that the mineral levels are correct. The parathyroid gland, the thyroid, and the kidney all work together with calcium metabolism. So we want to make sure that's working right, calcium and magnesium. And then also protein levels. I know there's a lot out there, the two different sides. Older theory is reduce the protein. Newer theory is do not reduce the protein in those kidney patients to that degree where it is so low that they can't even support their body. So we don't want to take it beyond that point. There are a lot of different phases that happen as the kidneys digress. And so we can use chlorophyll, which is really good to help the kidney function as far as some of the filtering of the body. The chlorophyll is also very, very soothing, and it helps heal epithelial cells. So that's another thing that you can use to help kidney function. Aloe vera can sometimes be a good option for you. Um, Certainly providing lots of different liquid sources. So water, number one, but you can take water and to encourage her to drink more, unless it's a heme organ. But you can add beef broth or, chicken broth or tuna juice, things like that to help encourage the drinking, and also feeding the moist diets and not the dry kibbles. So those would be a few things for you to look into. All right, while we're waiting for another question to come up, let's see, we can talk a little bit about. Oh, I know one of the things that I would suggest that's very, very simple. It's some of the rock. It's a balancing for the dogs to help with their coordination. So what I'll do is have them stand like what's called a neutral position. So their legs are under them good. If they have, most of these guys don't want to stand for very long. So I use a lot of balls, and I don't use them like super filled. I'll take some air out of them. So there's a little saggy area where their tummy can be. And you can get balls just, like from your whatever Walmart store. It doesn't have to be a big fancy ball. They can be inexpensive balls, a few dollars. For the larger ones, you may have to get some of the balls like what people use for sitting on, but leave some of the air out and put that under their tummy so they can kind of lean on that, and that helps take some of that gravity off of those legs. And then what you'll do is just put your hands on either side, and you just gently rock them back and forth. Just gently sway. You'll push one side, and then you'll push the other side, and so they'll just start moving back and forth. And you'll do that for like 10 to 20 times. And then what you'll do is put one hand in front of the chest, and then the other hand towards the rump area, like back of the tail, where the ischium is, the end of the pelvis. And then I usually do it kind of standing behind them, and I'll push them forward and back. But from a side view, you'd be going, at the front, it's kind of like a slinky. You push it back, and then you can feel their body move to the back, and then you go forward. So you'll do them front to back. And then I do the diagonals, because all quadrupeds are going to think in a diagonal. Their body functions that way. I shouldn't say think. Their body processes. So it goes left to right, and it'll go ipsilateral, the ones on that side, but it also works on a diagonal. So I'll go in front of the shoulder, like say on the right front, and then back at the pelvis and the left rear, and I'm working that diagonal signal. So they're shifting to the right front leg and then the left rear. And you'll do that a few times, and then do the other side the same. And so you'll do that pattern, and it's very gentle. You're not pushing them hard. And the weaker they are when you start, the less you are away from the body. Your hands are like really, really close, maybe even in total contact. But as they get stronger, you can move away a little bit, and then you get a little that give, and then you wait for them to move, and then you bring them back. And so they're having to like gently stop themselves instead of you being totally in control. And then as they get better, you can move further away. But that's a very easy exercise to do for any age, of any type or degree of poor balance or poor nerve input to any part of the body. And it's like a resetting kind of an exercise. All right. Lindsay says Monty Farms calcium oxalate bladder stones. What else can we do to help prevent the formation of stones? All right. So, first off, for that one, is you need to get the hair tissue mineral analysis test done. That's it. We need to find out what is the calcium level, what's the magnesium level in that interstitial fluid, how is the parathyroid, the thyroid, the kidney working from that interstitial fluid perspective. We got to figure out what the pH of the body is. There's definitely some specifics that you can do. Now, traditionally, the traditional veterinarians are going to do the urinalysis. Okay, traditional veterinarians are going to do the urinalysis, and then from the pH of the urine there and the type of stones, they're going to prescribe some kind of a processed food diet to help to change that. And oftentimes they think because they're stones that you need to remove calcium and magnesium. And that's one of the worst things. What you want to do is make sure that we've got in the interstitial fluid a balance there so that the calcium can be moved throughout the tissue and doesn't get precipitated. So so all that can be determined on the TMA, and that's where you would have to start for me to be able to give you specific qualified recommendations that are individual for Monty and not just a general something for everybody. I like to customize and be the most accurate possible. Alrighty, very good. Gindi, have you got another one? Alrighty. So anybody else got something out there they're wanting to just go ahead, step up. Don't be shy. You can ask it. All right. Laurie has a 4-year-old Pyrenees mix. So so a tripod. Are you saying that he's only got 3 legs? I'm wondering about proper amount of exercise for him. He's not a senior yet. Yeah, but you want to be definitely proactive. So I'm guessing that's what you're saying is he's a tripod, and that he's missing a rear leg. So it's actually easier for them to be missing a rear leg than it is to be missing a front leg. One of the things I would do because of his size is to use a harness to help him navigate. Also, to start doing exercises. Generally, when they've got 3 legs or missing one, you'll see a torque in their body because, and then he's shifting his weight, and so he's going to have some body torque that happens in order for him to try to balance, and that the other rear leg ends up sitting more under him. So regular chiropractic adjustments are going to be important. Now, you're not going to specifically get him to stand like he would in a neutral position missing that leg because he's trying to accommodate for a new type of balance that he has to have because of missing that leg. But having the harness, you can do some of those balancing exercises. You can still put the ball under him, and I've done a lot of that with these guys. Keeping the rear end strong. So helping him like with some sitting exercises to where he can work on learning to elevate himself from the rear, even though he's just got the one instead of always pulling from the front. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in some of the exercises that you saw today, or if you have a therapist nearby that can get with you. And actually, it helps if you have somebody right there showing you and then you do it and then they can help correct whatever needs to be. But there are a lot of different exercises and things working with his muscle tone and all of that that will help him down the road. Sandy has a dog with high liver enzymes. It went from 400 to 1200. So that alkaline phosphatase, which you're talking about there, alkaline phosphatase can be elevated for many reasons. It can certainly be elevated if it's a liver problem. It can be elevated if thyroid is low. It can be elevated if they're on NSAIDs. It can be elevated if magnesium is low. There are a lot of different reasons for that particular enzyme to be elevated. It isn't a liver one, yes, but it has a lot of other connections in the body. So you can start with doing liver support, but it may be one of those other issues. You could start with the liver support and then see if after doing that, I'm sure you're going to have some blood tests down the road if that changes. Also, high active adrenal glands that are producing a lot of cortisol. It's like being on prednisone. So prednisone will cause that to elevate, but so can an overactive adrenal gland function. So all of those things that I just mentioned, we can determine on doing the hair tissue mineral analysis test and find out which of those are the priority that is keeping that number elevated. And it may be more than one reason, but obviously start with liver. So you can do milk thistle things, which you probably already are. Dandelion roots, good for the liver. Burdock root can be good for helping liver support. Standard Process as a canine hepatic support product. Banyan Botanicals has a liver formula that works good on a lot of dogs. I've used that a lot. There are also other herbal drops, different companies that have good herbal drop combinations for liver support. So you can start with that and see then how it goes. But if you want to do the hair tissue mineral analysis testing, I can help you with that, or you can go to the checkpup.com. It won't be quite as, it's not like individual like me actually looking at it. It is my information based on doing thousands of dogs. But when you got something real specific like this, you may want to have, like some other tweaking done on it, which I can do if I see the reports in that. And then there would be dietary changes too. One of the liver's jobs is to break down carbohydrates. So to give the liver a break would be to not be feeding a high carbohydrate diet. You can use some plant starches, but don't get into the grains because that just is more work for the liver. All right. A Maltipoo, 15 years old. Patty's dog has Cushing's. She's always hungry. Yeah. If they have that, they're going to be hungry all the time. Yeah, steals the other one's food. Oh, okay. Is there something I could do to curb her appetite? So, getting the Cushing state adjusted, and that is what's going to change her appetite. As long as her steroid level is high in her body, she is going to. It's just a driving force that she's going to be hungry. Generally, they drink a lot and pee a lot too, and are hungry. Now, the other thing that it can be would be dependent. They eat cooked organic. Would be to not make sure you don't have glycemic ingredients. So you could feed organic. So this is really, really good. But like say if you had organic rice, rice is very glycemic. So you want to stay away from sugary things. Even carrots are sweet. So they could also add to the glycemicness, which is also going to add to some of the issues that you got going on there too. So if you can take that out, that's going to help. Make sure that there's enough fat content in the food because that's going to help with the protein, and the fat energy is what they burn. They use fats for their energy first. They burn that first. So having that available. And then there's other herbs that are really, really good for the adrenal glands. The other thing I'd want to note too is where's the copper level? Because if the copper level is high, that's going to cause some of these issues that's going on, and it may help you if we can get the copper level down if it's up. And sometimes in the Cushionoid animals it is. And then definitely supporting the liver. A lot of the doctors, when they get started working on a Cushing's, they're just thinking about the adrenal glands, but liver is huge in what's going on with the adrenals. So I would also, even if the liver enzymes and the liver blood tests are normal, liver makes hormone precursors. So I would just consider the fact that the liver's off because of what's been happening with the chronic Cushionoid state. And because of that, I would do liver support. And a lot of times, and the ones I work with, doing the liver support helps take a lot of that out of the adrenal gland in the Cushing state. So that helps too. Standard Process also has an adrenal support product. There are different herbs that are really, really good for helping the adrenal glands. You can use some of the mushrooms too. That'll also help there for both sides of that. See here, Romania is one of the herbs that's good for adrenal glands. So you can start with that. And there's some different combinations that are made up with Romania in it. Shiitake is one of the mushrooms that can be good for them as well. Otherwise, you just feed her smaller amounts multiple times a day, and that may help because then she's getting a little bit more often, and because she's so focused on food. So smaller amounts more often may help with that somewhat too. Okay, so Rachel says she loved to talk about oh, all right. Thank you, Rachel. That's one of my favorite talks too. The one about the halters, harnesses. She uses a halter. It goes around the nose. Yep. Yep. And clips to the collar. So, um, as long as you're not pulling on it, some dogs don't like them at all. I've had some dogs that just like it was the most terrible thing, like you were punishing them, so it wasn't fun for anybody. If your dog's used to that, that's okay. And as long as you're not like pulling off to one side from that, some of them have them set up where you're pulling on one side of the head, and it's not an even pull on both sides, because generally they'll walk on one side. So if you're right-handed, they'll tend to walk on your left. So you got your right hand to do things. And so then you're always pulling them towards the right because they're on your left side. So then you start getting things out of balance, like I talked about in that program. So if it's not set up that way and it's actually, you said it clips to the collar. So if it's loose enough and there's not a lot of pull and tug and you're not always on one direction, then that's fine as long as your dog's comfortable with that. Thank you, Lindy. She says her foster female dog, the vet put her on incurant for bladder leakage. All righty. Wonder if she really needs to take a pill every other day. Alrighty. So generally, the reason that happens, so for those incontinent dogs, generally the females, and it happens more often when in those situations where they've had an early age spay neuter. So those little puppies that are have an ovarian hysterectomy when they're 8 weeks old, those are the ones that are more likely to develop a lot of different issues, even inflammatory conditions, all of the early spay neuter programs, because those individuals have never had the benefit of the gonadotrophins. And the gonadotrophins are very responsible. Big part of their job is to help keep the cytokines down. And that's what drives inflammation up. So that's part of then down the road, because they never really had estrogen production in their body. We tend to see a lot more now than in the past of the urinary bladder leakage thing. So what you're looking at is adding in some kind of an estrogen type product, or like these type that help with that. And so every other day is not bad. You certainly can check and see if a lower dose works. The only way you know is by lowering the dose to the point where you start having the leakage again, and you go, okay, that's too low, I got to go back up. I do have some homeopathic preparations that are estrogen related, that are drops that can be used. So as a homeopath, it's not going to have the same type of impact on the body as what the chemical compounds do. But so those can work. There's an estrogen spray. So that's an option for you, something other than using that compound. That's been my best success, is using some of the homeopathic preparations. Sometimes we'll look at other, like Standard Process has some other protomorphogen products that can sometimes work too. Earlier on, I looked at using products that work to increase the ligamentous value of that area. I didn't have as much success with those as actually trying to work back into the hormone, because they don't really have any. So looking at the hormone type products is the benefit, and there's a variety of different ways you can go at that. Okay, the next question, isn't that cute? For a 15-year-old dog, do you prefer chiropractic adjustments or acupuncture? All righty. So for the first part of the question, uh, chiropractic, because it's instantaneous. I like to create that instant reward. Acupuncture can be good, but you have to do it and do it and do it. And I've had acupuncture on myself, and I can say appreciate it, but it's not instantaneous, and it doesn't reset the joints. It doesn't reset those motor units like the chiropractic does. So if I was going to do one thing to start with, it would be get a good certified chiropractor and start with that, and then add on the acupuncture depending on what the results of the chiropractic and some of the exercises that were shown to you today. Doing exercises with multiple subluxations in a body you will have less success and you may get frustrated because the body just can't do them correctly or comfortably. So number one would be chiropractic. It's the way to go. Yes, ideally both would be best, but otherwise start with the chiropractic first. His right rear leg is the weakest. Okay, so it could be that there's a subluxation in the pelvis that's preventing the motion for that leg to function. There also could be some low lumbar. Oh, and on the last one we were talking, where you were asking about the bladder leakage, sometimes L3 or L4 in the spinal, in the vertebra, that's where the nerves come off that go to the bladder. And I have had some dogs with the leakage where we chiropractically adjusted them and then the leaking would stop. It may come back after weeks or months. Sometimes it was like 6 months later. And then we would just, they'd come in and get adjusted again. But that's also another thing to check into if you hadn't done that for the dog with the bladder leaking, is to get chiropractic adjustments too for that. So there could be a couple reasons why the right rear leg is weaker. And for 15 years old, it could be some arthritic things that are in there or ligament instability and things like that. So doing your typical chiropractic, your chondroitin and glucosamine type products, some boswellia, maybe MSM. um, I got a mental block on another one that I was thinking of, like the Trixin syrup, the Cogent. That also is really good. You can use that a lot of times to help with those kinds of things and get that lubrication going really good. Vet wants to put her on this new injectable. No, you should read the side effects of that compound. And also, you can go to Dr. Will Falconer's site. He's got some articles on that. This product was actually researched, of course, researched on animals too earlier on, for humans, but the FDA did not allow it to be put out there for human use because of the problems of it. So the company turned around then and goes like, we invested all, this is my take on this, that they invested a lot of money, which I'm sure they did for the research, thinking they were going to get all this money out of it when it was FDA approved for using or cleared for people, and then it wasn't. And now they're going, oh, okay, let's just market it for dogs. Well, it has a lot of problems. So I would not use that product on my dog, and I do not recommend it. You need to go read the side effects of that and then go to Dr. Falconer's site and then take a look at it. Gendy, there was another sentence on there I didn't see. Still very active, most likely some pain, catching up. Oh, okay, I get it. Alrighty, cool. Yeah, traditional. Okay, so you have some traditional Chinese medicines supplements. Okay. Yeah, so just check them out, see what the ingredient list is. And not everything works to the same degree in every body. And sometimes you may do one type of product in the morning and a different one at night, doing your warm compresses and your massages and then the chiropractic. And definitely don't do that injection. Bad, bad. All righty, who's next? All right, you just found out your dog has a problem with yeast. You were given an ear cream. So I'm guessing you're saying there's yeast in the ear. The natural products for yeast are plentiful. How do you help him without throwing a ton of money away? I don't know if that means away like in doing a whole lot. So is the yeast problem in the ears? Is that all that we have? It's just in the ears and that's why you got the ear cream? So first off is it just means the environment of the ear. So if this is a dog that has ears that hang down and they're very heavy, and if there's a lot of fur, the first thing I do is shave the fur from right around the canal and the inside of the pinna. That's the ear flap. You clip all that fur. Now the ear becomes lighter, so you can actually start getting air into the ear. Number two is that we need to acidify the canal. The yeast is going to grow in there where there's an alkaline environment. Okay, so where the environment is alkaline in that ear, that's when the yeast is going to start growing more. Also, the dog's ear, our ear canal just goes straight in. Theirs goes down vertically and then turns and goes in. So they have this nice cave in there where all that can live. Also, seasonally. So if you're living in a place where it's hot and humid, and we're gotten into the summer here in the Midwest, then we'll always have an uptick in dogs with these yeast infections. So, uh, the easiest to start with is a mixture of the isopropyl alcohol and the white vinegar, 50-50 isopropyl alcohol and white vinegar. And you irrigate the ear with that. I mean, like I really fill it. Take the cotton ball, I push it down into that vertical canal, not into the horizontal. And you can always use some tweezers to pull it out. One time I had this St. Bernard I was working on, and it was so far down in there I couldn't, it was kind of like just took some little forceps and you just pull it out. It's not going to plug up the ear. You're just going to put it down there good. Then you massage the base of the ear, and then pull out that cotton ball, and the bottom of it's going to be have all this yucky stuff on it. So then you do another one until you're getting most of that grunge out of there that's down there in that cave. And you can do that every day for a while. It may take a couple weeks, and then you can go to every other day. So you start with that. You can use a little bit of aloe vera or some kind of a chlorophyll liquid down into there. You can use some colloidal silver to help down in there, but you've got to get that ear acidified and dried out. The other thing, if the dog is like it's summertime and you're in the rivers or the ponds or the pools or whatever a lot, after you've done your shaving and all that kind of thing, so put your swimmer's eardrops, flush the ear before swimming and after. The other thing that helps a whole lot too is to dry the ear. So if the dog has been used to going to groomers, this will be easier because they're used to blow dryers. But if you just pick up the ear and you dry that ear after it's been swimming, that also helps. All of those things will make a difference. But if this scenario with the growth of the yeast in the ear is a recent thing, then you'd want to look at what's different. So what can promote the yeast? High grain diets can promote the yeast problem. If you have a high grain diet and now maybe you were doing okay, but it's gone on for too long, or now the liver's gotten a little bit weaker and it's not doing as good a job of breaking down the carbs with that high grain diet. There's all kinds of reasons that it can now be a problem where it wasn't before. And maybe the dog's immune system is shifted, and the pH of the body, maybe it's moved from sympathetic to parasympathetic. There's just a lot of different reasons that can be. But there's a lot of over-the-counter topicals you can use too. But those are the key points: is getting the fur off the ear and using the swimmer's ear solution and drying the ear out and really flushing it and cleaning it good, and not just like dibby dabby on that. You're never going to get that. You got to get the grunge out. All righty. Okay. Sandy says, thank you. You're welcome. She's currently on Denamarin. Okay. So that's a help. So that's, like it's a milk thistle that's been kind of programmed a little bit way, and then it goes into that product that was promoted. But, there's a lot of products like with milk thistle that were available, and then but a lot of the traditional veterinarians weren't recommending it because it's not being sold by a pharmaceutical company through their distributors. So somebody came up and then started making the Denamarin, and then it's sold through one of their typical companies and corporations, and so that made everybody be more comfortable, traditional veterinarians who don't do holistic, with prescribing it. So that's kind of how that one came to be, and so that's fine. So it's a milk thistle derivative already. Would I suggest acupuncture? Sure, you can always do acupuncture. It's unlikely that acupuncture is ever going to hurt, and it's going to help the greatest depending on the skill of the person placing the needles and how they interpret the points and what needs to be done. What was the name of your test you can do? So it's done from a fur sample, so hair or fur, and it's called tissue mineral analysis. I'll abbreviate it TMA, but that stands for tissue mineral analysis because hair actually is a body tissue, just like you have a biopsy of a body tissue, and so we're getting the information from the hair like you would any other cells in the body. Alrighty, very good. Okay. Laurie says, I buy different harnesses. She's scared and hides. So she doesn't feel comfortable with having something around her body, which is a little different because most dogs like that. She also has some posture issues. Oh, I'm taking her to the chiropractor next week. Good. Is there any way to tell if it's a fear issue only? Well, I first would want to rule out discomfort. And it may be with the posture. So if she's kyphotic, base narrow, things like that, maybe there is some pain somewhere there and subluxations that makes any kind of harness fit not be comfortable. Also, you really, really, really want to avoid those kind of harnesses like in the program that come up and clip right behind the scapula that puts a lot of pressure right there on that liver acupuncture point, liver gallbladder. You want to avoid those. So it may be that the harnesses that she's had on have been uncomfortable because they have compressed that area. And so now it's a fear factor, apprehension about the harness. Other things to do, you'd have to just start in some ways, like having the harness lay around, maybe have one that's super, super loose that really, like you just put it on her in the house, not so loose that she's going to get her foot stuck in it, but where it's not really compromising the body at all. I'm guessing you can put a collar on and that doesn't bother her. So I would even start with like putting a t-shirt on, and you can take a t-shirt. I mean, you can buy dog t-shirts, but you can get little kids t-shirts or a person's t-shirt and then like tie it at the waist with a little knot like you do when you're styling, and see if she's comfortable with other things on her body and not just that the harness. And so I would do some things like that and see how she reacts to other objects on her that are comfortable, and then go from there after the. And I would take the harnesses that you have with you to the chiropractor and have all of them sized, and maybe it's just something that they're not fitting right either. So I would look at all those points. Okay, how do you decide which is better, freeze dried versus raw food, or make your own for a 10-year-old? Well, I think variety is good. Freeze dried is totally fine for snacks and treats. It can be totally fine as their own food. Like if we're I'm just going to give you an example. There are many cats that have been used to kibble, and cats are really, really tough to switch foods on. And if they think that chewing thing is what they got to have, sometimes that cat will never, ever go to a raw food diet. And if they're not out where they're eating mice and catching birds and things, they're never getting like the right kind of food. So for them, if transitioning to that freeze dried, they get the chewing thing, but it's more of appropriate diet, then I'm all for that. But otherwise, you can use the freeze dried as snacks, but you can also use it as a whole food diet. Raw food is going to be a little bit more archetype because it has the moisture in it. Now, a lot of the freeze dried will also have glands in it, so just like the raw food would. So for me, I'm not terribly particular. Either one of those I'm fine with, depending on what's easy for you to feed and the budget, what you can afford. And then if you can do some of both, then that works good for your lifestyle, then that's okay too. Making your own is good. As Judy Morgan has a lot of different recipes and she walks you through how to put it together. Yum Wolf now has a premix. There are a lot of different companies that have those too, that you can add the meat to. So you have like a really good quality premix, and then you add your meat and other things to that. So that can work for you. Making your own, you just don't want to get stuck in one specific recipe. You want to have a variety of those too. So you're getting different veggies in there, different protein sources. You don't just go, oh, this is easy. I make carrots, green beans, and meat. And all right. So where I was talking about not getting stuck on one diet or too tight of a diet recipe. Like you just use carrots and green beans, and sometimes you put beef, and the next time you do carrots and green beans and chicken. That's not going to work. And don't think that just because you're feeding a raw food diet, which is better than anything else, that it has all of the specific vitamins and minerals and nutrients that your individual dog needs. There's nowadays with the inflammatory states that everybody's in, all the chemicals they're exposed to, um, having flea and tick products on them, the glyphosate in the environment, pulling all of these good nutrients, the heavy metals. There isn't any one food that provides everything they need. So everybody needs something to help balance them better. But yeah, so you got a lot of options there to move away from the Siberian Husky part. That kind of tells me you may want to have something that has extra zinc or add a little zinc to the mix because of their zinc metabolism idiosyncrasies. Alrighty, very good. Lindsay says, any recommendations for car travel safety? We currently harness them into a square box that buckles into the seat. Okay, well, that's pretty good. Um, yeah, so I'm guessing your dogs like to travel. Mine hates doing it. Having the seatbelt things works really good, or you have to have a crate in the vehicle where they are put into the crate, and then that works. That, that's a safe method too. Anything is better than them just being loose in case there was an accident and then they're shoved around, or somebody opens a door and then they're so scared that they get out and run, and who knows what's going to happen. But I don't have anything specifically other than a lot of people use the dog car seat harnesses, and they seem to clip in and work really, really good. And seems like what you're doing's working. Other and like the only other thing I would think of is the crate itself. I'm a little uncomfortable having the crates like right in the rear of the vehicle, that's close to the rear, because of the fact you could get rear-ended, and then that's going to get smashed in first thing. So if you use a crate, if you can have them still positioned behind the front seats, it gives you a little leeway there in case there is something like that would occur. Hopefully never does. All right, so Bookie says, I'm interested in recommendations. Oh, we just talked about that. A 55-pound dog that bounces all over the place and no room in my vehicle to put a cage. So then you're down to, there's a lot of different car harnesses and that buckle into the seatbelt. So you just, like where the seatbelt does, you're just going to have to test some of those out. And maybe through the Pet Summits chat group, there'll be some other people with dogs of the same caliber that you can find out what's worked for them. I don't have a specific brand that I'm particular to. How can I keep my toy poodle's teeth clean, healthy, and tartar free? Okay, so first off is going to be the diet. The tartar accumulates on the teeth for a couple different reasons. One is the extruded diet kibble, that 100%, excuse me, is going to create the calculus, the tartar. It just leads to that because of what it does to the rest of the balance of the nutrients. Also, when the phosphorus level in the interstitial fluid is higher than calcium, that is an indicator that you're going to have a lot of calculus. That is the thing I look at on the hair tissue mineral analysis test for these dogs. A lot of dogs, you get their teeth cleaned, and 6 months later they're back in, and the vet looks in their mouth and it's like, this looks like 3 years since we did their teeth, not just 6 months. So in those situations, doing the hair TMA, we look at how much higher is the phosphorus than the calcium. And the problem generally is not that the phosphorus is too high, it's that the calcium is too low. So we got to get that into balance, and then you won't have that calculus being precipitated out of the saliva. So that's one way. The other way is using the different like toothpaste formulas, and I think that's in my book that you get as the download from Mouth to Bum. There's the recipe in there for making some homemade toothpaste. I use neem powder, which I actually get from Banyan Botanicals, and I add a few drops of essential oil, and then you can add some peroxide to make it into a paste, and that's what I use, and that works really, really good. It's worked good for me too for keeping plaque off, and also that's going to help with the breath and all of that too. There are different things that you can do with aloe vera and chlorophyll for brushing, for helping with the keeping the breath fresh in that way too. And then the other thing, if you already tend to have some gingivitis, would be a little bit of colloidal silver for helping with the gingivitis thing. And then New Zealander Velvet has an oral spray. You can also apply it when you purchase it from me. I send you a little sponge that you can spray it on the sponge and then go in and do some scrubbing that way. So those are all options for you. But the first thing is getting the diet right to where the phosphorus isn't higher than the calcium, and making sure they're not on kibble. And then bones. I mean, you can do bones. Not every dog likes to chew on bones, but if you can feed some beef bones, some raw bones, then, and not just that they do a couple chomps on it and swallow it. I'm talking ones that they lay there and they gnaw, those kinds of things. Sometimes the dental treats are helpful, and other times it's what's in them is not so good, and they chew them pretty quick, and it really doesn't work at the teeth like a real good sized raw bone does. Alrighty, now we have a 16-year-old Peak Chihuahua. Was like a puppy till December. All right, they were looking at something in the stomach, prebiotics, mushrooms, spirulina. It will only eat soft primal defrosted. Okay, that's fine. Anything else we should try? Well, so there has to be an underlying reason as why there's thickening. It's obvious then that this is causing them to be uncomfortable. You're not saying that there was a biopsy and that it was cancerous. And sometimes there can be things that happen in the stomach that's like an inflammatory process. So, yeah, I guess the next question would be, are the things that you're doing, are you seeing good improvements with those? Obviously, the soft diet is good, but are the things that you're doing actually making a difference or not? You know, what happens in the stomach actually starts in the mouth. So, number one, is the mouth okay? Number two, is the parotid gland working? So I would look at those, as an early, like those two items, and find out where we're at there, because that may be part of the stomach problem. There's really a problem with the mouth, and then you have maybe bacteria and infection kind of dripping down that way. And then I'd go from there. There's a lot of things I can do for the stomach, but again, I customize. I don't just like go, oh, try these three things and see. In this situation, I would really want to do an evaluation, which I do the telehealth, and find out what's the right thing, especially for a 16-year-old. We don't want to make a mistake and do something wrong, because they don't bounce back from an oops as well as a younger dog would. So don't want to throw anything that's like that seesaw, and then all of a sudden you're in the point of no return. Bianca has a 10-year-old male cat that was diagnosed with FIC, and he has blood, leukocytes, protein bacteria in the urine in May, and again this July. Oh, Prozac for anxiety. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm a cat person. I hate to tell all the dog people that, but if you read my biography book, it won't take you very long to figure that one out. I, as a kid, spent all my hours in the barn with the cats. So, um, yeah, I would never do that to a cat. There's a whole lot of reasons for anxiety. And actually, my number one would be suspicious that calcium and magnesium are low. Those are nature's calming minerals. And when a body doesn't have enough calcium, all right. So nature's calming minerals are calcium and magnesium. There is not any body. There is, whether it's a human, a horse, a cat, a dog, I don't ferret, it doesn't matter, bird. If the calcium and magnesium levels are too low, that individual cannot ever be calm. Even if it's a human and you understand to be still and what all that would mean in words, and you could try, but you won't be able to maintain that, because there's not the minerals to allow all of the needed processes in the body to create that calm state. It just won't happen. So that'll be my first thing, thinking that calcium and magnesium got to be low in this individual. I mean, there are so many things other than Prozac. The side effects of that are so much greater than all of the other things that can be done. Sometimes there's the collars, the hormone collars that are calming. Sometimes that helps in some of them. There are even essential oils that I'll put in diffusers that have worked great in the cats. There are so many options. This whole deal with the urine situation, I mean, I definitely would be doing a hair tissue mineral analysis. Maybe there's aluminum or mercury or arsenic or lead. There might be some toxic metal it's adding to that happening in the body. Also, the immune system. I'd be looking at the possibility of the vengeance transfer factor. The motherboard could be something that would help. There's an underlying why that hasn't been figured out. And just to do Prozac to cover up what the real problem is, you're never going to win. 10-year-old cat, you got a lot of years to go there. So there's something that's skewed. Working with the diet is going to be part of correcting all of this, but you need to have that baseline and really get to the source of what's happening, not just putting out the fires. And that's where the hair tissue, I know I say that a lot, but this is the test that helps you find the basic on the chain. It's the real first thing of what's going on that led to all the problem that became the domino effect. All righty. Wish you well on that one, and I'm happy to help. All right, so he had some prednisone to make him comfortable because they assumed cancer. Oh, this is the one with the stomach thing. He slowly lost ability to walk. Oh, this is back legs no longer work at all. Oh, no, prednisone didn't cause that. No. One of my theories is that nobody should die without the benefit of prednisone. Now, I don't know what dosage they use, but if it was just to make him comfortable, it wouldn't have been too high of a dose. I wouldn't think. Um, I would be thinking it might just have been the timeline of what was happening, because you put him on the pred because he was already having the problems. There's something else going on, whether it's a disc, um, calcification somewhere, subluxations, not enough choline for acetylcholine, the nerve regeneration. There's things you can do with the alpha stem microcurrent to help with that. I just don't think it's the prednisone unless it was a humongous dose, but just to make them comfortable, it shouldn't have been that high. I don't think that. I think that this was going to happen anyway, and it could have been any other compound. You could have given him gabapentin and it still could have happened. And I'm just saying this from all the cases I've seen and thinking through it logically. I'm not there with him and don't have everything and the timeline and all, but it just wouldn't make sense to me, again, unless it was an immunosuppressive dose that went on for a long period of time where he was drinking and peeing and it just weakened the whole body. But not knowing what the doses are, I wouldn't be thinking. I think something else also happened simultaneously. Bummer, for sure. Alrighty. Bully stick's good for helping teeth stay clean. I don't know. Don't know about that. They're not, I don't know. They're very popular. Some of the dogs eat through them pretty fast. They may promote them for that because it is something hard. If it works for your dog's teeth and you've seen it improve them, then okay. But it wouldn't be one that I put on the list first thing for everybody. Are heartworm medications such as HeartGuard necessary to give year round? Well, the answer to that one is going to depend on where you live, how bad the mosquito population is. I mean, okay, so it takes a 40-degree day for a mosquito to hatch. Now, once that mosquito hatches, it has to find a dog that has heartworms. It has to feed on that dog that has heartworms. Then it has to, that microfilaria that is picked up in that mosquito, that baby heartworm, then has to mature through several larval stages, get eventually to the lungs, and then to the heart after the fifth larval stage, and to become the adult heartworm. That takes a 6-month cycle. So even from when, yeah, it's actually even a 3-week timeline that that mosquito has to stay alive in order for that cycle to take place. So if you live someplace where it's cold enough in the wintertime that you may have a 40-degree day, but if it doesn't stay 40 degrees for long enough, then it's never going to happen to begin with. Like it's 41 day, but the next day it's 19. Ain't going to happen. So to give the body a break, I mean, my recommendation always was take them off of it in the wintertime and then start them back on it in the spring for those reasons. There are other products that are out there like homeopathics and other holistic herbal combination things that do seem to help prevent the heartworm population, and having a dog with a really good immune system, all of that's going to help. So you don't necessarily even have to do heart guard if you want to switch to some of the other options. And I would refer you to Dr. Will Falconer's vitalanimal.com site. He's got a lot of different options there for you to approach that from a different perspective if you want to. But if you live where it's cold enough for the wintertime, it's not going to be a problem. My take on it. Alrighty, Susan asks, is it true that an intact male is more likely to be a fussy eater? No, I can't. That's the first time I've ever heard that an intact male would be a fussy eater. And no, I've seen many intact. My son raises treeing Walker Coon hounds, and generally those are not neutered for their hunting, and you never know if they're going to sell a dog and somebody wants to use it for breeding and that kind of thing. It's not, but they're kept contained so they're not out repopulating the whole environment. And those dogs, we got 3 of them at home right now, and they are all happy to eat every time of the day, every time you feed them. And we feed them really well, but they're always happy to eat. I can't, it would be more of a breed thing. I could think of some breeds that were intact males that maybe were fussy, but it had nothing to do with being intact. The hormone thing, unless, okay, the only time that could happen is if there's an intact female in the neighborhood close enough that they can smell it, and they happen to be one of those male dogs that gets all wagged out about the girl in heat. Then during that, her heat cycle, which is a week coming in, a week in, a week going out, especially during that week in time, that dog may not eat very well. But that would be the only time that I could say, oh yeah, that sentence makes sense. Otherwise, no. Alrighty. Okay, one last question. Oh, 558. Okay, we had a blood test as well as the urine test. It shows calcium is normal. Yeah, that's the blood. The calcium in the blood can't change very much. It's, you want to do a hair analysis. That's the interstitial fluid. That's the refrigerator and the cupboard. That's what the body is feeding off of. You can't get that information from a blood test. Sodium's also different in the interstitial fluid than the blood. The blood's what keeps you alive from minute to minute, second to second. It cannot deviate much. You're not going to get the information you need. Okay, so yeah, you're not going to get the information you need to correct all of that from a blood test. Where can I get the hair tissue test? All right. So, oh, Ziwi Peak diet. That's really good. Ziwi's great food. You can contact me. It's on my website. If you go to avafrick.com and then go to, there's some information about the hair. You can go to a page that tells you all about it, and then you can purchase the test, and then I can run it for you. I would recommend that because we're going to look at some really specific things. You can, yeah, that's what you'd want to do. We have the checkpup.com out there for dogs. But in this particular situation, we got to do some specific things. And this is our kitty cat, I'm sure. So, all righty. Very good. Wow. That hour goes by so fast. we didn't have quite as many interruptions tonight as we did the other days. So I appreciate everybody hanging in there. I appreciate you being a part of the summit and the enthusiasm that you bring to everybody. I'm going to get on the portal and visit there with you a little bit, see if there's any questions people had. I can add a few comments to there as well. So thank you all for being a part of day 3. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow after our day 4. That's going to be aging, stress, comfort, and then we're going to talk about how to know when the end is there, and getting through that in the most comfortable way that you possibly can. So, also want to thank the Vism Light for their support, and also Chi Dog. So, to everybody, give your critters out there a hug. And from Dr. Ava, give them a kiss on the noggin. See you tomorrow.